Well, after a calmer night in Ferguson, Missouri, police say they believe they have reached a turning point, and now the case that sparked the turmoil is about to move forward. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paulo Salazar.
And I'm Abby Maurer. Thanks for joining us for the news at 5. It's been 11 days since protests broke out after the killing of unarmed teen Micheal Brown. Last night's protest was, for the most part, peaceful after community leaders and Brown's parents pleaded for non-violence. Still, at least 50 people were arrested. This after the news of another fatal police shooting of an African-American man quickly spread.
And we now turn to award-winning photographer Jon Lowenstein, who has been on the ground in Ferguson watching the events unfold. Jon, thank you, first of all, for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me on.
Now, you've been on assignment capturing the scene. Can you give us a sense on how the emotion has evolved over the past week as new details are being released in the case?
Yeah, I would say when I first arrived, which was Thursday, was the first time I hit the ground, Thursday night. And each night, what's really kind of wild about this story is that each night has been really different. And at this point, the story is, there's so many media here, and it's such a big story that I feel in some ways like Mike Brown, the person, is getting lost a little bit. Does that make sense?
It does, and we're kind of getting that sense also watching social media. There's been some reports coming on that they're looking more, as night falls, it's been more of a community versus law enforcement. Are you seeing that?
No, I think the community is fighting to keep its voice and keep at the center of the protest because they're the ones who are going to be here when all the people leave who are telling the story. And so it's their community that's been torn apart by this and continues to be torn apart. And that's, I think, what we see here. And
now, Jon, you've covered events like this in the past or some similar. How do you see these events similar to some other events that you've covered?
You know, to me, this is almost a little bit like the Republican National Convention in 2004, a little bit like Katrina that I've gone to. It's really intense, and I feel that I see this stuff happening every day. I live on the south side of Chicago, and I see the violence in the neighborhood. You know, over July 4th weekend, there were 5 police shootings with 3 people killed. There was 82 people who died, and in murders, 82 people shot. I mean, and so this kind of violence and this tension in the neighborhoods throughout the United States is happening, and Ferguson is just an extreme example of what's going on throughout our country, and nobody has been paying any attention to it. And people just got to a point and they said enough is enough. We can't take it anymore.
Now, Jon, you are there on the scene. Do you see, moving forward in the next couple days, do you see the violence subsiding?
You know, it's really an interesting question because in some ways the fact that the young people who have taken it to an extreme level are actually keeping the conversation going. And there's been a lot of forces that is trying to silence their voice. Yet those are the people whose voices are so seldom heard. And so we want the violence to stop because nobody wants violence, but we also don't want people to be silenced, right? And so the question is, how do we come to get justice and at the same time not have people hurt and businesses hurt? And so I see that is the big question. And do I see it subsiding? I think so, but a lot of people are being arrested. A lot of protesters are being arrested right now. And that's what's happening. I think the protesters are being systematically arrested. I don't know what is happening to them once they're being arrested. And then I think that their voice is being silenced. And if it weren't for so many press, I think it would be a lot worse. I'm also concerned what's going to happen to the community after the press leaves. You know, what kind of retribution will be carried out against the people who protested moving forward after the press leaves.
Well, Jon, I know we've got plenty of questions and not enough answers. Thank you so much for joining us and giving your sights and sounds on the events that are going on there in Ferguson. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. All right, take care.
And we'll continue.